Rambam. We are learning, go from one holiday to the next, skipping around so quickly. And we're coming now, Laws of Sukkah, chapter 6. We did Shofar, Sukkah, and Lulav. Chapter 6. Women, slaves, and minors are exempt from the mitzvah of Sukkah. How come? Why would they be exempt? Because it's a time
Time sensitive.
sensitive. So therefore, when we say slaves, we mean a non-Jewish slave who is has to fulfill the negative commandments, right?
Yeah.
But not the positive commandments. This is a positive commandment, so they're exempt,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't mean they can sit in a sukkah, but they don't have the obligation to sit in a sukkah.
Yeah.
Women love that when it rains. Men sit there in the rain. Although halachically, we'll see that that's not necessarily the case, but you have to do pending, right? Timtum and Dragon are obligated because of the doubt concerning their status, and since it's a biblical commandment, right? So therefore, we're more
Lenient.
no
Oh, no, stringent.
stringent, right? Exactly.
Is it with rabbinic commandments that you can be more lenient?
Huh?
Is it with rabbinic
Oops.
commandments that you can be more
Sorry,
lenient?
1 second. With are we still on? So with rabbinic, we're more yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So similarly, a person who is a half a slave and a half free is obligated. How can you be half free, half slave? It's because you're owned by two people, and one person freed you, and the other one didn't. A minor who does not require his mother's presence, a child of 5 or 6, is obligated to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah according to rabbinic decree, but not biblical,
Yeah.
to train him in the performance of the mitzvah. The sick and their attendants are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. This applies not only to the person who's dangerously sick, ill,
Wow.
but also to one who has a headache or a sore eye. Right? A person who is uncomfortable in dwelling in the sukkah is exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. This applies to a person himself, but not to his attendants. Right? The attendants being Jewish, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they still have to fulfill the mitzvah. Who is a person who's uncomfortable with dwelling in the sukkah? A person who cannot sleep in the sukkah because of the wind or because of the flies, mites, or the like, or because of the smell. Right. The Rambam might come up with these terms, but you're dwelling in your sukkah the way you would dwell in your home.
Yeah.
If your home, you had a bunch of mosquitoes flying in your room, you wouldn't sleep there.
Yeah.
So in your sukkah, you don't have to sleep,
Yeah.
right? Now, Chabad Kassim, by the way, is we don't sleep in the sukkah.
Mhm.
That's Chabad Kassim. That's a whole different thing that only came up from the Middle Rebbe, actually. Um, so I'm not going to, I don't want to go into that, but just to bring that out. And Chabad custom is even if it rains, and right, if it rained in your home, right, would you stay in that room? No, you go into a different room that it didn't rain in, right? Now you fix whatever you have to fix. That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is you're supposed to live in a sukkah the way you would live in your home, right? Making the temporary dwelling into like your dwelling.
Yeah.
But that's as you would dwell at home. That's why in these conditions you don't have to. A mourner is obligated to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah. A groom, his attendants, and all the members of the wedding party are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah throughout the 7 days of the wedding festivities. Now, you're exempt doesn't mean you still could. Why are you exempt? Because you're involved in one mitzvah, you're not obligated in another mitzvah.
Yeah.
That's the idea, right? So 7 days of the wedding party is, right, fulfillment of one mitzvah, so you're not obligated in another
And
mitzvah.
then why is the mourner obligated? Because the mourner is in the.
You tell me. Because you're only biblically a mourner the first day.
Oh.
Rabbinically, you're the 7 days.
Okay.
But that there's a biblical law versus rabbinic law then,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So then Okay. Emissaries charged with the mission involving a mitzvah are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah, both during the day and night. They're emissaries to a mitzvah, so they're exempt,
Yeah.
right? People who journey through during the day are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah during the day and are obligated at night. In other words, because they're journeying during the, oh, 1 second, I'm not clear on that. I'll try to,
What are you not doing?
aha.
You're busy traveling.
In other words, just like you live in your home and you don't live in your home at all times, because when you travel, right? So here you're exempt because you're traveling, so
Yeah.
then you don't have to sit in a sukkah,
Yeah.
right? Now that's during the day, but now nighttime came,
You gotta sit.
you got to sit, right? Because you're not traveling. Back in the day, you didn't travel at night. You only, you didn't have lights in the front of your
Right.
horse,
Yeah.
horse and buggy, right? That you were able to go.
Maybe a lantern, but
Yeah, but you still didn't travel by that. Exactly. Okay, people journey during the night are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah at night and are obligated during the day. Oh, okay, so those who do at night, right? The city's day watchmen are exempt from the mitzvah of the sukkah during the day and are obligated at night because they're only daytime watchers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a night watchmen are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah at night and obligated during the day. The watchmen of the gardens and the orchards are exempt from the mitzvah during the day and night because the watchman constructs a sukkah. A thief will realize the watchman has a fixed place and will go and steal it from another place. So he can't go because what's going to happen? Someone's going to come and steal because he's going to figure he's going at this time, so I will steal from him, and he's a watchman in order that there shouldn't be theft.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's not obligated. Right. By the way, Chabad, we're crazy. We don't drink a cup of water outside of the sukkah. Men, not women.
Children are exempt.
Well, children for sure. Although when they're of age,
Yeah.
you want to educate them with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how.
Even on the road you went?
Even on the road. Yeah,
Gotta
that's.
find a portable sukkah.
Or some people sometimes take with them a portable sukkah, those pop-up sukkahs.
Yeah.
Or you go to Chabad in Albany when you're driving, right? And so on. Yeah. Or you don't drive during Chol Hamoed. You go before or after, right?
Another option.
Halacha number 5. How must the mitzvah of the dwelling in the sukkah be fulfilled? A person must eat, drink, and live in the sukkah throughout all 7 days of the festival, both during the day and night, in the same manner as it dwells in his home throughout the year. Okay, that was what I mentioned earlier. During these 7 days, he must consider his house as a temporary dwelling and the sukkah as his permanent dwelling. Right, as it says, you shall dwell in the sukkah for 7 days. What does this imply? His attractive utensils and attractive bedding should be brought into the sukkah. His drinking utensils, his cups, his crystal pitchers should be brought into the sukkah. However, utensils used for food, pans, and plates may be left outside the sukkah. Candelabra should be brought into the sukkah. Or if the sukkah is too small, it should be left outside the sukkah. In other words, you have beautiful things at your Shabbos table, have beautiful things on your holiday table during Sukkot. One should eat, drink, and sleep in the sukkah throughout the 7 days of the festival, both during the day and night. It's forbidden to eat a meal outside the sukkah for even the entire 7 day period. However, there is no prohibition if one eats a snack, the measure of a kibetza or less, or even slightly more. One may not sleep outside the sukkah at all, even a brief nap. It is permissible to drink water. By the way, Chabad customs we don't, and because of the holiness of the sukkah, we don't. But for those who do have the custom, if it's really cold in Montreal, for example, and right, just like if it would be raining, you wouldn't eat in your living room when it's raining on you. So likewise, you don't have to sleep in the sukkah because of the coldness, right? If it bothers you. Now, if you again, remember, exempt means you're exempt. That doesn't mean you
don't do it.
That doesn't mean that you are not allowed to.
Yeah.
You're just not obligated to.
But is it our custom not to eat outside the sukkah as well?
That's what I just said. We'd not even drink of water.
Oh no, I'm asking eat though.
Well,
Like
if a drink of water you wouldn't have, then
Yeah.
eating all the more so,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Eating is more
Yeah,
a sign of like a drink of water is like nothing.
yeah.
That you could have a drink of water before Havdalah, but you can't have something else.
Yeah.
That's how insignificant. In other words, halachically is a drink of water because not because it's insignificant, because having water is so crucial, obviously, right? But insignificant, in other words, that it's lenient that you could have because it's so essential to life.
If it's the most lenient thing we're being stringent with than with everything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As he says here, it's permissible to drink water, eat a fruit outside of the sukkah. However, a person who follows the stringency of not drinking even water outside of the sukkah is worthy of praise. And that's what we do again. So we don't do it for the praise. Why do we do it?
Because it brings nachmas to Hashem. It's
Because it's a Chabad custom. And oops. And for us, the identity, just like the identity of being a Jew is essential, right? The identity for someone who feels that of Chabad, right, is essential, and therefore, because that for that reason alone.
Yeah. That's what Hasidim do.
Yeah. Okay. Number 7, eating in the sukkah on the first night of the festival is an obligation. If a person eats merely a kazayas of bread, he fulfills his obligation. Afterwards, the matter is left to one's volition. In other words, the rest of the holiday, you don't have to eat bread. The first night here, because it's the first 2 nights because we're outside of Israel, right? Meaning, let's say you don't want to eat. You don't have to eat. If you want to have a meal, you have to have it inside the sukkah, right?
Yeah.
But the first night you have to eat because it's a holiday, so you must eat.
Yeah.
And therefore you have to eat it in the sukkah.
Yeah.
Now, minimally is a kazayas of bread, which is like a slice of bread, or a slice of bread. You fulfill that obligation. Afterwards, the matter is left to one's volition. If one desires to eat the meal, one must be eaten in the sukkah. If one desires throughout the 7 days of the festival, one may eat only fruit and roasted grain outside of the sukkah.
Yeah.
Because you're allowed to. It's praiseworthy but I'm not obliged. So I could eat outside of the sukkah, right? The whole holiday. Again, in a diaspora, it's the first 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Same applies to laws regarding the eating of matzah on Pesach. Right now, there's the first night. Again, diaspora, first 2 nights, you have to eat matzah.
Yeah.
The rest of the holiday, you don't have to. It's forbidden for a person to sit and eat with his head and the majority of the body inside the sukkah while the table is in his home or outside of the sukkah. It's considered as he did not eat inside the sukkah. Rather, the table must also be inside the sukkah. Because it's not just you're eating there, it's you're living there. Remember, that's the key. You're living there. Well, how do you live? You live with a table, right?
Yeah.
So even if they're the smallest sukkah by 7 tvachim, 7 by 7, that's very small. That you can only get a small little table, right? So it's like 28 inches by 28 inches. That's pretty small of a sukkah. So you can't get in your full body, but you can get most of your body in, or a portion of your body with a little, TV dinner stand, right? To fulfill, that's when you're traveling, right? Rather than the table inside the sukkah, this is decreed, lest one be drawn after one's table. This all applies even a large sukkah. Okay. Number 9. Throughout the 7 days of the festival, person should read in the sukkah. However, when attempts to comprehend what he reads in depth and appreciates its details, he should do so outside the sukkah, so that his mind will be settled. When a person prays, he may pray inside the sukkah or outside the sukkah as he desires. Why? How come?
Because you could pray inside or outside.
Your
You
home.
could pray outside your home. Yeah.
Right. In other words, where you're going to pray best. So if it's inside the sukkah, pray there. If it's not, then if it's not like and others with the minyan, let's say if you had a minyan in the sukkah, if that's gonna, but let's say it's too distracting. I don't know because of the wind or whatever, right?
So it's neither here nor there whether you pray inside the sukkah or inside
right. Eating is a different story,
Eating,
right?
yeah.
Right. That's praiseworthy, everything, right? But here, the davening it definitely does not need to be in the sukkah. And likewise, learning. If you feel if your learning will be because eating is different. Eating is just about enjoyment of the eating. Okay,
Yeah.
so enjoy it in the sukkah,
Yeah.
right? Enjoy it in the sukkah with the pouring rain. Right?
Yeah.
That's our personal stuff, right?
Yeah.
But learning is God's Torah. Davening is connecting to God.
Yeah.
That you need to do it in an optimal manner.
Yeah.
So the sukkah is not what is kind of kaiveya, is not what is the determinant, right? In that instance, it's a little more. If rain descends on a person, he may enter his home. And one is permitted to leave the sukkah when enough raindrops descend in the sukkah so that he would spoil or a cooked dish, even the dish of beans, were they to fall into it, right? If a person was eating in the sukkah and the rain descended and hence he entered his home, if the rain stops, we do not obligate him to return to his sukkah that entire night until he finished eating, right? Because he left already.
Yeah.
If he is sleeping and the rain descended and hence he entered his home, we do not obligate him to return to the sukkah that entire night should the rain cease. Rather, he may remain sleeping in his house that entire night until dawn. Until dawn. Why until dawn? Why does he even have to say that? How come till dawn?
Yeah. I guess it's saying that he's not obligated to like wake up in the middle of the night when it stops raining and go outside.
Hmm.
You don't understand it that way?
It implies that the person cannot sleep his normal measure, but must rise at dawn to return to the sukkah. And not strange and allow the person to remain sleeping at home until he wakes up. Why would that be a stringency? Okay, I'm not clear. Okay, number 11. A person should not take apart the sukkah after he finishes eating on the seventh day of Sukkot, because it's a holiday.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. However, from afternoon on, he may take down the utensils and remove them. Right? The utensils you can remove, you're not going to use them anymore.
Yeah.
If he has no place to put his utensils, he should reduce its space by at least 4 handbreadths by 4 handbreadths. If he has to eat later in the day, he must eat in the sukkah because the mitzvah extends throughout the 7 days. Whenever a person enters a sukkah with the intention of sitting down throughout the 7 days of sukkahs, he should recite the following blessing before sitting. Blessed are you who were sanctified with the commandments and commanded us to dwell in the sukkah. Leishe basukah, right? On the first night of the festival, he should first recite the blessing on the sukkah and then blessing over the occasion, meaning shechianu, right?
Yeah.
Then shechianu. One should recite the blessing over the cup of wine. Thus, one should recite the Kiddush while standing. Recite the blessing, Leishe V'sukkah, sit. And then recite the blessing Shechianu. We don't do it that way. We stand for the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is the custom of the teachers, the rabbis in Spain, to recite the Kiddush while standing on the first night of Sukkot, as explained. At present, in the diaspora, we celebrate the holidays for 2 days. We dwell in the Sukkah for 8 days. On the 8th day, which is the first day of the holiday Shemini Atzeres, we dwell in the Sukkah, but do not recite the blessing Leishe V'sukkah. Right? We do the whole Shmini Atzeres the 8th day,
Yeah.
right? All in Sukkah, but no Leishe B'sukkah. Similar to Timtum and Androgynous, never recite the blessing Leishe B'sukkah because of the obligation to perform the mitzvah is in doubt. Why? Because we don't know male, female,
Yeah.
right?
And
And the blessing is never recited when one is doubtful in one's obligation. After a person finishes eating on the 8th day of Sukkot, he should take down his utensils and remove them. When a person has no place to put the utensils, the following rules apply. If it is a small sukkah, he should bring his candelabra into it. If it is a large sukkah, he should bring in his pots, plates, and the like, and he should to bring to mind that it is no longer acceptable and that it's a mitzvah, the mitzvah is completed. Since the day of the holiday, one may not reduce the space and nullify it. A person who did not construct a sukkah before the holiday, whether intentionally or unintentionally, should construct them on Chol Hamoed. One should even construct a sukkah on the final moments of the 7th day because it's a mitzvah lasts throughout the 7 days. The wood on which a sukkah is constructed is forbidden to use it for other purposes on all 8 days of the festival. This applies to both the wood used for the walls of the sukkah and the wood used for the schach. Throughout these 8 days, no benefit may be derived from it for other purposes. They are prohibited on the 8th day because the sukkah is muktzah. Oh, 1 second. Is muktzah on the 7th day, including the period bein hashmeshis. Since it's muktzah, neither the period bein hashmeshis and muktzah, neither day follows. Similarly, last halacha, it is forbidden to take the food and the beverages hung on the sukkah as decoration for all 8 days of the festival. However, if the time one hung the decorations, he made the condition that I will not refrain from using them during the entire period of Bein Hashmoshes, he is permitted to use them as he desires because he did not set them aside, nor did the sanctity of the sukkah encompass them. Nor are they considered part of the sukkah. Some people put up Chabad custom. We don't put decorations up, but some people put like food decorations. If you made a condition that I could use it, otherwise it's part of the sukkah, so to speak, and therefore you couldn't use it. But if you made that condition, then you could.
If you made the condition that you were going to eat it, is that what you mean by
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that you're going to use it to eat it, right?
On whatever.